Hi, Crafty Nanny Jean here, and today I'm working on is mug rugs. And the reason I am working on mug rugs is because in teaching yourself to quilt, I've been sewing for over 60 years, but I've done a couple of quilts over the years, but now there's so much on YouTube that you can, figure out how to do these really nice. So these mug rugs are great practice. They're a great way to use up your fat quarters and to use all your little scraps. You can use both squares of scraps, if you have squares of scraps like this, or little tiny, like some of them I had to cut into tinier ones, and then I have I cut some into the hexagons, so it uses up your scraps. And then I have strips like this, and those can be sewn together and thrown in there too. So that's just a regular one. I also have made some where they're either applique or you can sew it right in, and say like here's a Mickey Mouse one, and if you were doing an applique you could just fold this in half, and there's your little roof, and you can make a little house. And I actually did make, and I will do a tutorial on that eventually, for real estate agents. It was really cute that I made for my granddaughter, who is a real estate agent, and I made a little house on these, and then I put a little pocket. I didn't put the windows or the door on it. I just put a little pocket right here, and she can put her card, and you can put a little thing of tea in that she can give away at her open houses. So there's many things you can do with these little mug rugs, but this is what I'm going to show you how to make today. So stay tuned. Okay, what you need for this project, and I will have things that you might not have on hand that you might want to keep on hand later if you're making quilts. And this mug rugs are really good practice for making quilts later. So that's why I like this, because it's helping me a lot to learn quilting, to make my skills a little bit better, and they are getting better as I go along. So to start with, we're going to need, if you're going to use scraps, then do this, or if you're going to use a whole piece, you will need an 8x10. So I'm going to sew some of these together, some that look like they might go together, until I end up with an 8x10 piece approximately. And I am going to make this self-binding, which means the backing will be one piece, and then the backing will turn over to the front. And then you will need a piece, so a fat quarter is good. You will need to cut out of that a 13x11. So what I'm doing is 1.5 inches all the way around. So at the beginning, this was about 1.5 inches. Most of them are doing it 1 inch. I like to make it a little bit wider. It's just easier for me. So this was 1.5 inches on all four sides, bigger than what my front was when it was done. And you will need to have, okay, I said scrap fabric. Okay, the fusible facing, and fusible batting, and I got this on Walmart, and it has like a gritty side and then a nice smooth side. It's almost like fleece. And so you could use fleece if you wanted to, if you just want a piece. Fleece is inexpensive, so if you wanted to use fleece in the middle, then you would probably pin it on, or you could use that glue to fuse it once you got your 8x10 piece. Okay, then you will need rulers. I have a couple different here, and then I have, of course, my 24-inch one. For this project, you shouldn't need much more than a 12-inch ruler, but I would suggest to have these thick plastic rulers. They're much easier for cutting. You will need your rotary cutter, and this is my original rotary cutter, and so I use that for most of it. But for the fleece or the fusible batting, I use my older Dollar Tree ones, because it does have some glue on the back, so that if glue gets on it, it's not ruining it. You will need to have, if you have these, I'll put the link in the more section for these two. These are clips, and they help a lot, especially to hold together the binding. And then you have, you'll need a sewing machine and thread for the sewing machine, or you can do this by hand if you prefer while you're sitting in front of the TV. So, and then you would just need a needle and thread to sew it all together. Seeing it's smaller, and if you're younger and you don't, you can still do hand sewing, that's fine. And it would be a good project for children to learn too. So that's it. Okay, and then I prefer a scissors for trimming down the seams rather than using the rotary cutter. It's just easier for me. So I do have my scissors, or like I said, you can do it with a rotary. So I believe that's all that you need to start the project. Okay, I've kind of decided here how I want to put them together. I have these baby Yodas, and there's a little bit of pink in the ears, so I'm just going to use some of these pink scraps I have here, and I'm going to put the pink in the middle. So the first thing I'm going to do is I like to take my ruler. It's just easier for me. I know you can mark this on your sewing machine, and that's fine too. Easier for me just to mark the 1/4 of an inch, so I'm just going to mark my 1/4 of an inch, and I'm just using a pencil here. You can use your markers or chalk or whatever you have. So I'm going to be sewing both, so I think I'm just going to do it's easier. It's harder to see obviously on the back of these, and it's easier to see on the back of the pink, so I'm just going to do both of it on the pink. Then I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew those together. Okay, I've got the first one sewn, and I'm going to see it's approximately 11, so I have plenty of extra. So now what I need to do is kind of block this up so it's straight, and I like to cut it, or excuse me, fold them in half. It's just easier for me. And then I have this roller, and I'll put the link to that too, because that's kind of a nice thing. It wasn't very expensive. And I do have a small iron, but I'm not going to set it up right now because it's too hard trying to video record and do that. So there's the half, and I'm going to lay it along here. So I'm going to lay it right along my line here. And they do say that, you know, because you're cutting on these lines, so I try to stay away from the lines that I have actually have grooves in them from cutting. And there is, on these mats, I didn't even realize that the dots were on there until recently. I don't know why. But, so you can either do it straight, like this one is like 7 here. So it looks like I'm going to have to go a little bit before the 7. And you're going to have to do this several times while you're doing this to get, especially when you're doing scraps. So it looks like right there at that. And then we want to take our roller, and it's best to stand up for that and hold this nice and tight. And you want to straighten this out before you put the next one on, so that you, I have a terrible time with these cutters getting everything cut, but eventually it works. So there we have it. A nice straight piece. Okay, so I'm just gonna roll that out a little bit. I'll iron it in a minute. And now I have to decide what I'm going to do for here, so I will get back to you in a minute. Okay, I'm going to sew together 2 baby Yodas because I'm going to do it like this. And make sure that when you're doing this, that the stretch is going the horizontal way. The stretch should never go the vertical way, because when you sew, it'll stretch out. So I have this, and I'm just going to mark that with my chalk. I have a piece of chalk here, which is another thing. I don't remember if I said make sure you have a mark and a chalk, or a chalk and a marker. Okay, so I didn't have quite enough of the smaller pieces to make it big enough for this, so I took the smaller piece, the little ones like this, and I cut that in half, and I sewed all those together. So now I have actually 4 pieces here. And when you go to iron, try to iron like your seams. So this one was going this way, so try to iron it that way, and then that way the seams aren't quite as bulky. Okay, now what I'm going to do, make sure I've got the top. And I'm actually going to use the smaller piece here because otherwise it's going to keep getting cut off. So now what I want to do is again fold this in the middle so I can find my middle so I can match that. You don't have to match it. I mean, if it's off sides, that's fine too. It must be football season, off sides. Okay, I have sewn together the bottom part, and now I will have to straighten that out so that it is straight. This one almost looks, I'll do it in a minute. So we'll fold again in half. And one of the reasons that I use a pencil to do this on is because the pencil has a thin tip, and I don't know why all the markers, I do have some chalk that is a little bit thinner edged, but all the markers seem to have such a thick tip, so I don't know why. I don't know why they can't make a thin one. They can in the permanent marker, so you would think they would do it for us sewers too, seamstresses. Okay, so I'm going to put this together as well as I can, and I'm going to start by doing this. We're going to have to shorten this because it's longer, but right now I'm just going to square this up. So I'm going to find someplace where I don't have a big old groove. Okay, I have this all squared up. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead, and I think I'm actually going to use the top rather than the bottom because this got really little, and by the time I take another 1/4 inch seam, there's not going to be anything there anyway, so I think I'm just going to use it at the bottom. So now I'm just going to mark my 1/4 inch, and this actually is going to be, I did make a little with my roller, so I know where my middle is here, and my middle here would already be the seam in the middle, so I would want this seam to go right down the middle here, and this is going to be longer, so I will adjust for that afterwards. Okay, so I have it marked. Now you just want to take the seam, and you can use a pin to do that too, to get it if you want it exact, and then just sew that seam. Okay, I've got it sewn together, and it is only less than 7 inches. I might add another strip in a minute, but let me tell you a couple of things. First of all, when you press the seams, try to press the darker seam towards the dark fabric, and make sure that you iron everything out front and back before you try to square it up. So I'm going to square this up now and then look for another piece because I want to add a little bit more. It's fine horizontally, but vertically I would like it a little bit longer. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, not even quite 7, and by the time I square it up it'll be less. So I found this pink polka dot, and there's some dots representing the galaxy within Yoda's here for the Star Wars. So I decided to use these, so I'm just going to square these up, and then I will do top and bottom. I didn't want to just do top, so, and then I will cut it down from there. Okay, I've got this sewn together, and that's why it pays to keep all your little strips, because you just never know when you're going to need this. So I'm going to square this up, and then I will find what I want to use for the backing. Okay, our next step is to use our batting. So I'm just going to lay this out. And you want this to be exact same size because we are self-backing it. If we were using a batting strip, then you would want to cut it like a 1/4 inch less. Otherwise it gets way too bulky. Okay, and you can square that up in a minute. I'm going to go to the iron this on because it is an iron on, and I do iron both from this side and the other side. Okay, so I've got the backing on, and it's approximate. It may be a little bit here, but that's not going to hurt that it didn't quite go all the way. So our next step is I have cut the backing. It's not even at this time. And I'm just going to put this on, and I did cut it the wrong way, but I'm just going to go with it. I don't think it's going to make that much difference, and I will square it up afterwards. Okay, so get that backing on there. As I'm going to go here so I can try to get this on here as straight as possible, and I'm not going to cut it for a minute or so. And what next, you want to quilt it. So you can quilt any way you want. You can go down like this and across like this, or you can just do all these. And you can also, if you don't want to quilt, if you don't want to quilt the whole thing and you don't want it to show on the back, then you can just quilt this part and then put your backing on. I prefer to have the backing quilted also. So I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and do that. Okay, I just quilted down the lines and then I just filled in. Nothing, it's not even, it's just there. Another thing that might be helpful is to have one of these rollers, and that'll just get the stuff off of it. But this is the reason why I did not square it off before I quilted it, is because sometimes when quilting it, probably all the time, at least it's always happened to me, the quilting gets puckered a little. It comes in, you know, and takes some of it off. So now we want to square up this before we do our self-binding. Okay, to square it up, I am using my 12-inch square ruler, and I am laying the 1.5 mark right along where I have the main part, where I have the front, because that is squared up. Okay, I squared this up. Okay, so I'm sorry, I rewatched the video from the sewing channel, and I didn't do the corners right, so I'm going to demonstrate on this new one that I just made, which is I did a cat and a bat on some Halloween fabric. So basically it after you put everything together and you cut the back, as I showed you in the other video, you're going to take this, you're going to have the 1.5 inches, and you're going to take these two sides and you're going to fold it over and almost touching right here. So that's the top and the bottom. And then you're going to stitch from this corner to this corner, and you're going to do the same thing at the bottom. This corner to this corner. Okay, and then this is how you get the good corners. Okay, then you take these, and I ironed them down already. So you're going to take each corner and you're going to turn them like this, and then you're going to turn it again into your, just before you, it's not quite touching, and then come over, and there's your mitered corners. See, there's your mitered corners. So that makes more sense. So we're just folding it right here and right here, and then folding again and going here, and then we're going to sew here, and we're going to do the same on the other side. So once again, I'll demonstrate on the other side, folding right here, fold once, and then fold again. And you have your miter's corners. So easy, and I made it so hard. Sorry. Okay, so here is are both of these, and this one, the one that I actually demonstrated on, I cut the video off with what I did on this one because it was wrong. It still turned out with miter corners, but I made it much harder, and it's also this one, doing it the way I had done it the first time, it's bulkier. This is nice and flat, and the corners are very nice. That one especially turned out nice. So that's two different mug rugs. This one was the scrap one, remember, and this one I just finished for Halloween with the Halloween fabric. I love the way this one turned out. It's so cute. So anyways, if you like this content, please subscribe to my channel, give me a like, and I hope you have a wonderful day. God bless. Be safe. Bye now.